Hello and welcome to the Star Wars Stuff podcast, where we talk about all things Star Wars. My name is James.
My name's David.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Rudy.
And Rudy, in case y'all don't know, Rudy has been on our Patreon, and he and I did the commentaries for all of season 2. So, Rudy, it's nice to have you on board today for our episode.
Yeah, it's pretty great to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, unfortunately, this Friday, I could not watch Mandalorian, so it's like, I don't know. I got so used to watching Mandalorian on Fridays that when I can't watch it, I'm just like, what do I do now? Like, what do I?
No, it's been depressing.
So I've actually
depressing start of the year.
I've actually been watching Rebels all morning every time I wake up on a Friday. So that's what I'm doing.
All right, there you go.
And you recently just rewatched all of Clone Wars, right?
Yeah, it took me about a month, I think, just over a month to do all 7 seasons.
Yeah, I tell a lot of people whenever they're like, "So should I watch Clone Wars?" I'm always like, "It's a commitment. It's a lot."
I did it in a week and a half. So
that's disgusting.
Wow.
What? What? Were you doing anything at all? Like, are you just sitting on the TV like this next?
I don't know if I want to admit to that on the podcast, but it might have been on the side while working. So that might have been
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I know whenever sorry, my light is in the way, but I know when season 7 was about to come on, I was binge watching it while I was at work. But I made sure I was on lunch.
Well, see,
I did anything.
I mean, obviously with COVID, I've been working remote, so like,
okay, lucky you.
There you go.
I just had my iPad off in the corner, and that's how I got through it. But then you can put in easily 8 hours a day.
I think there's a week where my wife and son were at her mom's, so like I watched the first 3 seasons like nonstop. I was texting James the entire time. He's like, "You animal."
Yeah, like he was like, he's like, I just started season 3. And then, like, a few hours later, all right, I'm on season 4. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing this? David, you've never seen all of Clone Wars, right? But you've watched the last season?
Yeah, I've never seen every single episode, but I've heard synopsises and read stuff, and I think I pretty much have the full picture of what happens. And I saw the entirety of season 7 that dropped last year.
And those last 4 episodes of season 7 were like, I don't know. That's going to be required viewing for Star Wars fans. Like,
when you see like the Clone Wars symbol just all in red and it's all quiet, and you're just like, oh crap, here we go.
Yeah.
And like you know what's gonna happen, but it's just the perspective that they show it. It's just amazing.
Oh yeah, no, I agree, and I know what's really crazy is, I talked about it last week, but this week also I've talked to about maybe 3 or 4 people that I know who are just getting into Star Wars now. I think everyone has seen the Mandalorian hype. I think everyone has seen that, okay, this is something pretty good. I should jump into it. And a lot of people ask me, okay, James, where do I start? And so I always say, all right, well, you got to start with episode 4, like all of us did, and go through that. Okay, let me ask you a question. Is that the way to watch Star Wars, or do you want people to start chronologically 1 through 9?
It depends. I mean, my kind of thing is I always ask people, all right, do you know anything about Star Wars? Right. So like if they know like Darth Vader is Luke's father, then I usually have them start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because I think it just is easier to watch that way for a casual viewer. Okay. But if they don't know that, I do not want to I don't want to just ruin that with the prequels. So that's kind of my opinion. So I think every time I've shown Star Wars to people, I've started Phantom Menace. But
right, David, what's your
you're starting with Phantom Menace, then is the issue, right?
Yeah, but
I love Phantom Menace. I love Phantom Menace. So,
yeah, I was gonna say, but a whole new generation, like your generation, you're a little bit younger than us, like loved the Phantom Menace. I mean, I love the Phantom Menace. What are you talking about? But David, how do you kind of how do you do that when you tell people like where to start with Star Wars?
So we've had this conversation many times on the podcast, and I've been very undecided, but I think I have my final answer to that question. I think it's release order. I think you have to go original trilogy. You can't pay attention to the episode numbers. You have to watch it the way they were released. I think that's the best way to do it, because that's the way that all the hardcore fans, all the older fans experienced it, and that's how they fell in love with it. So I think that's the best way to go.
What about 100%
you? 100% agree. I agree. I mean, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. I mean, that's the best way to do it. You really fall in love with it with those first 3 movies, especially Empire, and then after that, everything else is just filling in the gaps in terms of information.
Yeah, I always tell people, I say, okay, you see what happened, but now you have to see how it all started, and then you're going to see how it all ends now. That's how I tell people. Like, the middle is the most important story. I mean, it's all important, but the middle is like the meat of the story. But now you got to see how it all began and how it all ended. A buddy of mine, the girl he was like watching them with, did hey, knock it off. Jeez, that comment is a great comment. A buddy of mine is watched them in machete order. He actually watched them in that order, where you do 4, 5, stop at 5, and do 1, 2, 3, and then you do 6, and then 7, 8, and 9. And so he was like, it's an interesting way to watch it that way. And he goes, why do people do it? I was like, well, it's the whole 4, 5, and at the end of 5 you find out, no, I am your father. Then you stop there, then you go back, then you do, here's what led up to that. Then once you get to the end of Revenge of the Sith, and you go, okay, now here's episode 6, and then you go from there.
Interesting.
But, yeah, he said he liked that was the way he was watching it, and he's the one who told me his favorite one was Attack of the Clones, and I was like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I thought Attack of the Clones. He said the dialogue was a little. I was like, yeah, it was a little. He says, but the overall story was really good, and I had to think about it. And I'm not one of those guys who's like, well, you're dumb for liking it. That's the worst Star Wars movie. I'm just like, I thought about it from his perspective, and I was thinking, and I said, I can see how like it's like, okay. Oh, thank you. Somebody said, great show. Yeah.
So I haven't shaved since 2013. I'm just gonna leave it like that.
I call this my Jedi beard. Whenever this is my Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi beard.
It's like a week. I'm just lazy.
But going back to the Clone Wars is one of my favorite prequels. It has so much information packed into that movie, and like it really sets up, and like you understand what's going on in the later movies because of that one episode.
Attack of the Clones, yeah. Oh yeah, Attack of the Clones. Yeah, Attack of the Clones sets up the entire original trilogy. Really. Yeah, it sets up everything, and as you know, with where the story goes. So Attack of the Clones is one of the most important movies of the whole series. I mean, they're all important, but Attack of the Clones is like the pivotal movie. Unfortunately, it's the one that people least like. I mean, I still enjoy it. I always tell people, even though I don't like Attack of the Clones, if they said, "Hey, Attack of the Clones is going to be back in theaters next week," I'm going to be like, "I'm going to be there to watch it." Like,
I mean, why wouldn't you be there to watch it?
Exactly. The moment it comes out, I'd be there to watch it. But good morning here from Australia. Hello. And in case for y'all listening to us right today on Monday, we're doing this live. So we're going to be doing this from now on. So if you want to jump on, join our Facebook group, our YouTube channel, you'll be able to come on live and listen to us talk about Star Wars stuff. So this week, what do we have happening this week? A big deal is happening this week. What do y'all got?
2 books of the High Republic releasing on Tuesday.
Yep. And if you look in the background, David kind of snuck it in, but I can see a little bit of it there of the High Republic. So in case y'all don't, there we go. Light of the Jedi. I have already pre-ordered my copy of it, so I'm ready to go. Who else has pre-ordered their copy of it?
I pre-ordered mine today, actually.
Dave, okay, Sam.
Yeah,
I have not. I apologize. I don't know how to use reader. That's my problem.
He's just over there like this. Give me 1 second, guys. But I'm excited for it, and I've kind of gone into this not knowing what's happening. I mean, I have an idea that there was an explosion, a ship explodes, and that kind of sets the whole thing forward. Which, okay, I'm going to throw this out there. Okay, did y'all read Duel of the Fates? The script of Duel of the Fates?
I did not.
Okay, so the original Colin Trevorrow script, the ending of the whole thing was a big explosion. There's a big explosion in space, and the whole galaxy hears it, and then it's over. The Star Wars is over, as it says in the script. And then in the High Republic, it's a big explosion that puts the whole thing forward. So I'm wondering if the High Republic was also trying to tie into what they were trying to do with the sequel trilogy. Just a thought I've kind of had in mind. I mean, I don't know if it's possible, but it seems to like, wow, that's kind of convenient.
Well, so from my understanding, this whole High Republic era is at least 200 years prior to the Phantom Menace. So, my biggest thing with the High Republic is like, I'm excited because I don't know what's going to happen. I think that's the same excitement I had with the Mandalorian, because I felt like it was going to be a standalone away from what we've seen in Star Wars so far. But the High Republic truly is going to be that, and that's what makes it exciting. I don't know if it's going to connect to Colin Trevorrow's Duel of the Fates.
Well, not anymore, because they completely did away with that script. But I'm just wondering if in the pre-production, when all these amazing authors were creating this timeline, And I wonder if that was what they were considering. And just so everyone knows, this new timeline, the High Republic, has been well thought of and well planned. It's not like, David and I used to have arguments 2 years ago about if the sequel trilogy was planned. We found out it kind of was, kind of wasn't, but this High Republic timeline is completely planned out by amazing Star Wars authors. Claudia Gray is writing a High Republic book, which comes out February 2nd, if I'm not mistaken. So this is exciting. This is exciting news for Star Wars because we're getting a whole new timeline with stuff that we don't know about. And if I'm not mistaken, the Acolyte is the very end of the High Republic. So they're just saying, hey, you're going to have to get on board with all. I mean, are you excited for the High Republic, or are you just kind of keeping an open mind about it, David? How do you feel about
I think I've gradually gotten more excited because when they made that announcement about the Acolyte, that it's going to tie into the High Republic era, I got really, really interested. And I was already interested, but I mean, they pushed it back from August till this coming week. And that was not that great, but I mean, we're going to get it now. I mean, we're here and now, 2021. It's a brand new year. So yeah, I'm going to be all on top of it. I'm going to try and finish this book as fast as possible and have a review up on Patreon of it. So
and for all you Star Wars fans who are like, what books do I read? This is a great place to start because we're all starting chapter 1 together with this. So this is a good place for everybody to kind of get on board, to start and to see where it's going to lead. And my prediction is once they establish the High Republic, probably like another 2 years, they're going to go even further back and start doing the old Republic. They're going to start bringing all that stuff into canon. I mean, we're already starting to see a lot of that coming into canon, but I think in a couple of years, they're going to go even further back, and then we're going to start seeing all of that other stuff start to flow in. And then, I don't know, man, it's getting pretty exciting times.
Yeah, I mean, well, Kathleen Kennedy said it when they made all the announcements, was there's 2,500 years of history within Star Wars, and we've only seen 67 years of it with the Skywalker saga. So,
that's insane.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's crazy, like how much they can do with what they have in their hands.
So let me ask y'all this: is Lucasfilm doing a good job now going forward? I mean, a lot of people said the sequel trilogy was a little meh, but now going forward, does it look like Lucasfilm has finally like got that stride and like, okay, here we go? I mean, Sam, how do you think? You look like you have an opinion right there. I want to see.
So I'm optimistic. I think so. I think we proved that the Mandalorian's phenomenal. Even so, like, there's definitely good things about the sequel trilogy, regardless of your overall thoughts on it. And then I mean, I love Rogue One. Like, Rogue One's like one of my favorite Star Wars movies, which is, I mean, I don't know if I can say that it's like my favorite, but I love Rogue One. And so they've clearly shown that they have, they're going the right direction. I just hope that they're not kind of doing the Marvel approach where it's kind of just like throwing out content and not making it really, really good. And so until we start seeing more of these shows, that's my worry, because I'm a huge Marvel fan too. But if you look at like, the first 21 movies or whatever of the MCU, I mean, kind of in the middle there, 3/4 through, they started getting really stale. They were kind of just checking the boxes.
Yep.
And I really hope Star Wars doesn't do that. I mean, I think Star Wars will always have, at least to me, because I never read like the Marvel comics and stuff. I'm not one of those people.
Gotcha.
But like, at least to me, like, obviously anything Star Wars is cool. Like, if we can learn anything more about the universe, that's cool. And so like, at least Star Wars to me has that element to it that the Marvel movies didn't. But I'm a little worried about that. I'm hoping they're not just trying to cash in because it's Star Wars and they can sell a bunch of stuff, right? But
what do you think?
Mandalorian's phenomenal. So
yeah, Mandalorian proved to be just an amazing success for Star Wars. But we'll see. Rudy, how do you feel about how Lucasfilm is now doing?
So I feel like they have the right people in place now. I think the sequel trilogy at some point in time was rushed after Force Awakens. Force Awakens was well thought out, well planned, and everybody was very hyped about it. After that, it started getting a lot more rushed because fans wanted more, and they wanted it fast. Then when they brought in Filoni and Favreau to do The Mandalorian, they're now putting the right people in the right place to actually think about it. Because these guys, they have a lot of passion for Star Wars as fans. And then like David pointed out, I think the first episode of The Mandalorian, they also have a lot of talent to get it done.
Yeah,
so
they got some heavy hitters there doing this.
and it's pretty exciting to see what they have coming out. I do think they are going to take a Marvel approach with some of the series in terms of doing crossover events. I think we'll see that with Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Rangers of the New Republic. But I think that's all we're gonna see from what they're pulling from Marvel. It's just maybe those crossover events.
How do you think Lucasfilm is doing now, David?
I think they're getting there. I think kind of the way I see it is the episodes, the sequel trilogy was kind of like their testing ground, unfortunately, for Disney Lucasfilm. Which I think about that just about every single day, many times. Like, why did we have to go through that to get to The Mandalorian? It just kind of feels like that to me. But there's a book that I'm listening to on Audible that is really good. It's really long. It's called The Secret History of Star Wars. It's by Michael Kaminsky, and it's narrated by another great Star Wars person that's out there, Josh Robert Thompson. He does like excellent impressions of Robert Downey Jr. and Jeff Goldblum, and he was Jeff the robot on The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, so you've probably heard him before. But in the book, they talk about how George Lucas didn't have a plan. He did not have a plan whatsoever.
Nope,
he had the outlines for stuff, but as time went on and as scenarios played out, he figured out Star Wars. He figured it out as he went. So he was essentially doing what they did with the sequel trilogy and laying down the train tracks as the train was like barreling down on them. So,
which is terrifying to think about. You know what I mean? Like the original trilogy that we all love so much, he was just kind of like, and Leia is Luke's sister, and like, really? Yeah, she's his sister. Even though Leia's sister was supposed to be somebody completely different in Return of the Jedi, and it was just, I don't know if I read that book, and I let Rudy borrow it, the biography of George Lucas, and he talks about a lot of the pre-production stuff, and you're reading and going, that wasn't in the movie. That was nowhere in the movie. And then you read what was in the movie, and you're like, how did he think about that? That doesn't make any. Like, Vader was not supposed to be the father. Like, Vader was just supposed to be Vader. You know, in the first Star Wars movie, that was all it was Vader was just Vader. And then in the second movie, he was like, that'd be pretty cool. You know what I mean? So
that'd be pretty neat.
Yeah,
pretty good plot twist.
But I will say that he did have that like super early on when he was writing Empire. It wasn't just like, oh, that'd be cool. It was like, oh, okay, I want to do this now. But if you read like what the first movies were supposed to be about, you're like, oh my gosh, like he had no idea. I mean, he had an idea, but like David said, he was just like, yeah, I'm gonna figure this out while we're doing it. And then here's the movies, and you know, it's all great. And I love that there's stuff in the movies that are being retconned and like, oh yeah, this is what they meant in the movie, and you're like, no, but okay. You know, like Rex was in Return of the Jedi, like, oh, look how much they plan. You're like, not really. You know, just somebody somewhere was like, oh, that'd be pretty cool, and then they did it. Like the one that's going around right now is the Obi-Wan Kenobi seeing Luke and Leia together in A New Hope. Have you heard about that one? So in A New Hope, when Obi-Wan is fighting Vader, he looks over and sees Luke, and then he sees Leia, then he stops, and then he smiles. And the new theory going around is he smiles because he realizes that the twins found each other. So now he can let go because he sees Luke is now with Leia. So then he lets go and dies. We know as Star Wars fans that was not what was going on when they did that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's one of those things that you hear and you're like, oh, that's a cool thought. You know, that's what I like about Star Wars is that you can kind of just retcon something and it makes sense. I mean, Clone Wars was really big about that. Clone Wars did a great job of kind of going like, yeah, that's what that meant. You're like, oh, that's cool. When you know for a fact, like George Lucas had no idea what he was doing. But hey,
well, he sold A New Hope, and then it was a huge success. So then he was like, okay, well, I guess I have to do this now.
I guess I have to really be serious. Right. This thing's making a lot of money now, so I have to keep doing this. I don't know, but yeah, like David said, the sequel trilogy was kind of the same thing where they were like,
except for they changed writers and directors after 33% of the way in.
Yeah, so they did that with what was that? Force Awakens. They switched screenwriters, and then they bring in Ryan Johnson, and Ryan Johnson takes off from what J.J. Abrams did and does his thing, and then J.J. Abrams is like, all right, now I got to take off from what he did and make my own thing, and it's like, okay. I mean, again, like I said, I love the sequel trilogy. The sequel trilogy was so much fun. I had a great time watching. I mean, and like David says, you know, when you see Star Wars, you just have to get over the shock factor that you're watching Star Wars. Like, it's just, the movie starts and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, this is Star Wars. You know what I mean? I don't know. Every time I see a Star Wars movie in theaters, I'm like, I'm actually watching a Star Wars movie in theaters. This is fantastic. You know,
a long time ago in a galaxy far away.
Yeah. And you're like, here we go, you know, and I don't know. It's just, I'm excited to see what Taika does with his new trilogy in 2023. I mean, everyone seems to be pretty excited about that. I mean, I'm excited. Are y'all nervous? Or are y'all excited about how Taika is going to take his Star Wars trilogy or his Star Wars movie?
I feel like I don't know if he's gonna add in his level of comedy to his movie like he always does. Like he did it with Thor Ragnarok, he did it with Jojo Rabbit. Like his comedy is out there for a lot of people, and if you don't get it, then it's not gonna be funny. And I feel like that's what he's gonna do with the trilogy. I hope he kind of dials that down a little bit. But other than that, he's a phenomenal director.
Oh yeah.
Because I remember I had my wife watch Jojo Rabbit, and she was like, "I don't even know what's going on." I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is hilarious." She's like, "Why?"
He did a movie called The Hunt for the Wilder People, and there's a scene where there's a funeral, and it's a really sad moment. Like in the movie, you're like, "Oh my gosh!" And then it cuts to the priest, and it's him, Taika Waititi, as the priest, and then he starts talking, and you're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like he just made it like. It lightens the mood, and he's so funny, and it's like he did that on purpose to let the audience know, hey, it's a funny movie, I promise. Just let's get past this part, and it'll be great. So yeah, I understand what Rudy's saying, where you're worried that he might kind of do that with Star Wars, but I don't know. What do you think, David? Do you think he might do that with Star Wars, or he's a professional?
Well, I mean, I guess a lot of people forget he directed the last episode of season 1 of The Mandalorian, and that whole like banter between Sudeikis and that other scout trooper, and then him punching Baby Yoda in the head.
That's like the greatest 2 minutes of Star Wars.
Try to shoot the thing and was completely missing.
Yeah, and then of course he was the voice of IG-11. It was like perfect to perfection. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I have no problem with Taika Waititi directing a Star Wars film, and it's going to be totally divorced from everything we know, apparently. So it's not going to touch on. Yeah. I mean, to me that's wonderful, and that's why I wanted Ryan Johnson to do his trilogy, but it seems like he's not doing it. I don't know. We didn't get official word when they did the announcements back last year when Kathleen Kennedy talked about all the future projects. She didn't mention Ryan Johnson at all. So. And I think that name is just way too divisive, I think, in the Star Wars fandom. And The Mandalorian, it seems like, brought everyone back to Star Wars.
Yes. It's wild how they did that. Like, seriously, think about that. Like, Force Awakens made twice as much money as Rise of Skywalker, like in the box office. That is wild. And then the fact that everybody's freaking out about Mandalorian now.
Yeah, that's because Force Awakens was the first major Star Wars film that anybody had seen that had to do with the original trilogy. I mean, we had Rogue One before Force Awakens. After. Yeah. That was the first new trilogy. So yeah, that made twice as much as Rise. But Mandalorian, man, that thing was just so hyped and something completely different. I couldn't believe what I saw when I saw episode 1.
Oh yeah, and it was crazy because David and I know we sound like a broken record, listeners, we apologize, but like David and I had our expectations kind of lowered when Mandalorian came out, and then that first episode happens and you're like, what in the world are they doing with this thing? But I will say one thing, I'm going to go back to what the Return of the Jedi actually made less than what A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back did. So Star Wars people were already tired of Return of the Jedi when Return of the Jedi came out, even though it was the biggest trilogy of all time. But I will say, I don't know what George Lucas was smoking when he wrote Revenge of the Sith, but that movie made more than Attack of the Clones did, and that was another hyped up. I think it was because people knew what was going to happen in the third movie, so everybody wanted to go see it.
Well, also because people thought that was going to be the last Star Wars film ever.
That's true. That's very true.
I mean, he had that really long hiatus between 6 and 1, and we all kind of figured he was going to do it again, or just maybe pass away. Sad to say, but I mean, I never thought we would we would get new Star Wars films with George Lucas even still being alive. But I know for a fact that he did think about doing a new the sequel trilogy before he sold to Disney. But the reasoning apparently is because he was thinking he's got 10 years to make these 3 films. And it's like, does he have 10 years left to live? I think that was his original thinking. Because I mean, he's already in his 70s. It would take him into his 80s into directing.
And another thing was he produced that movie Red Tails about the Tuskegee Airmen.
Yep.
You know, which I mean, it's amazing story. I mean, it made quite a bit of money, but he got criticized for like being a racist, for like doing, and he was like, "What are y'all talking about?" Like, he was shocked by the backlash he received as a producer of the movie, saying like, "Why did you make this movie? You're just trying to exploit the black community and everything." And that was kind of that what David said, the 10 years, how long, and then plus that, then he said, "You know what, I'm done. I can't." No one. It seemed like George Lucas got to the point in his career where he could not do a single thing right. Yeah, everybody criticized him for everything he did. He was like, "I'm going to write and produce episode 1." Everybody was like, "That's not Star Wars." He's like, "Yeah, it is, because that's Star Wars. Like, I wrote it." And then here's episode 2, and they were like, "That's still not Star Wars." And he was like, "Oh my!" Like, I don't know. I feel George Lucas just got completely destroyed by the fans, and that's just the saddest thing I've ever seen. I mean, that's my opinion.
But unfortunately, it's the truth. I mean, George Lucas made the prequels the way he wanted to tell the story, and fans at that point didn't want that. They already had it in their minds how they wanted the story to play out, and they didn't get it. But they got George Lucas's version, which is the only version in my book. But yeah, I think you're 100% spot on. He gets us too much heat from the fans.
Yeah.
I mean, David, do you think that's also what happened as well?
Yeah, he definitely got a lot of criticism, and apparently, in this book and all the research that Michael Kaminsky did for the Secret History of Star Wars, he's spoken about the fact that George Lucas does not like, and he's very sensitive to criticism, and that really weighed heavy on him, especially for the prequels. And I wouldn't blame him. I mean, he took a lot of heat for Jar Jar Binks. He took a lot of heat for certain other things in the prequel trilogy, and yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing, even though it made a lot of money. I mean, anything that Star Wars is going to make a lot of money when it's released in theaters. But I mean, there was a certain expectation by the fans, by especially the older fan base, that weren't really met. But it's very interesting to me to see at this point in time how beloved the prequels seem to be now. And it seems like back then, couple of years after the prequels hit, it was kind of like what the sequel trilogy is now. So I'm kind of interested to see, okay, if we put some space between the sequels being released and the time period that we're in, is the sequel trilogy going to be beloved too? I don't know.
I think it already is, because there's a whole new generation of fans who are experiencing those 3 movies back to back to back. Like, some people are binge watching those movies now the way we did the original trilogy, you know, and for them the story's complete. That's the trilogy. That's it. They don't have to wait for anything to happen. They don't care about the behind the scenes or anything like that. They're just watching these movies the way they are. And I know somebody who was like, "Dude, Force Awakens was awesome." And I was like, "Really?" They were like, "Yes, that was so cool." And then somebody else, they were like, "Dude, the Last Jedi was like the best thing I've seen." And I was like, "Okay, like, oh, that's great." And she was like, "I don't know why that one." She's, "I heard this one was the most divisive, like of them all. Like, it's like, and nobody really liked it." She said, "But I thought it was the best of the new trilogy." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Then someone else said The Rise of Skywalker was there. So it's one of those things where if you're watching it all at once, I think it's different. I think if you catch it later, it's going to be a different experience for you, as opposed to us who are crazy Star Wars fans, who study everything about Star Wars, who know about all the writers, the directors, how long it took them to make the movie, when the movie was released, and everything like that. I think we kind of get we look at it differently than other people, but I have a feeling in a couple of years, the sequel trilogy will be as beloved as the prequels were. And then
I think you give it a decade.
Well,
personally, 5-10 years.
I think when the older fans get over the fact that the sequels were a product of Disney, it's going to be one of those things, because, like David was saying, the prequels now are very coveted because it's still George Lucas. At this point, everybody's like, oh, Disney made these movies. This isn't George Lucas. This is now a product of Disney. And I think once fans, older fans, get over that, it's gonna be like the prequels. They're gonna be maybe not coveted, but they're gonna be more respected a little bit more. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a ton of new fans that are just experiencing Star Wars, but they're watching the sequel trilogy first, and that's what's getting them engaged and wanting to watch the original and the prequels.
Yeah, somebody I know said they told somebody to watch 7, 8, and 9 first before they went back and watched the other ones, just so they can be like, hey, this is what it looks like. It's cool. It's gonna get you engaged. Now this is how it all started. Then you go back, and I'm like, that is crazy. Like I can't even fathom telling somebody, hey, watch 7, 8, and 9, then go back and watch 1 through 6. Like, no, you can't do that. But then again, hey, I mean, everyone experiences Star Wars in a whole brand new way. So
I mean, the thing I'll remember is I know when I saw Rise of Skywalker in the theaters, and I know I had all my preconceptions. I think it was actually my second viewing. It wasn't the first time I saw it. So I obviously have all my opinions and stuff of my idea of what Star Wars is, and then kind of trying to decide, do I like this film? But I remember sitting in the theater, and there was a kid, like 8 years old boy, like one row in front of me, and he was on the edge of his seat the entire movie, just having the absolute time of his life. And I'm like, you know what, like this is going to be his Star Wars, know? And so that's been, interesting to think about. When that kid, grows up, he's going to have very fond memories of those films. Just like I do with Phantom Menace. Like I freaking love Phantom Menace. Pod racing, man, Darth Maul, that's all I need. So
well, heck yeah. I mean, the pod racing I have a high opinion about the pod racing, as David knows. But yeah, the pod racing was pretty amazing in episode 1. And you're right, that kid, 8 years old, he's catching Star Wars at the right age. I mean, he's catching Star Wars at that age where he's going to be like, oh my gosh, this is the best movie ever. And he's going to look at 7, 8, and 9 as the trilogy of all trilogies. Right. Like to him, that's the original trilogy to him is this one. And then everything else was like the before history. Well, you know what I mean?
I personally, I hate to say it, but like to me, like I knew the prequels, like I would say through elementary school. And then it wasn't until like middle school or so that I started really getting a love for the original trilogy, which is just crazy to say. But to me, I mean, like, the flashy special effects and stuff, and like not really caring as much about the story. To me as a kid, like, oh my goodness, the prequels. Oh, so it's interesting.
So it took me, like, I remember as a kid, being at my aunt and uncle's house for Thanksgiving, and just you have a whole room full of kids and cousins playing, and then you hear the intro to New Hope, and everybody just stops and starts staring at the TV, and that's what I didn't care about the storyline at that point because I was just a kid. But then when the prequels came out, that's when I started digging deeper into Star Wars because I started learning more about the story itself. Now, don't get me wrong, I watched 4, 5, and 6 first, but then when 1, 2, and 3 came out, it really just clicked on a switch.
Yeah, I was just glad we had more like Star Wars toys. And if you remember, episode 1 had the craziest toys ever, What does Josiah say? He said the sequels were the first movies I saw in theaters because I was born in 2003. Oh my gosh. That fact alone made the movie special. And so even though they aren't perfect, they're still special to me. Yeah.
Just don't do the math to see how old Josiah.
I'm not going to do the math.
I already did the math.
But yeah, see, like he says, like the sequel trilogy was there for him. Like he was, and then when he got old enough to watch him, he had 1, 2, and 3, and so for him that was Star Wars, and like that was the way it was, and that's what I try to tell people who are like very negative toward like other fans. I'm like, dude, like everyone's experiencing this in a whole new way. Like Sam's experience is completely different from my Star Wars experience. Like he said, you watched 1, 2, and 3, then you watch 4, 5, and 6, then you're like, oh, okay.
For the record, I definitely watched like the original trilogy when I was a kid, like,
but not as much.
But they weren't as flashy to me, and they didn't attract me as much.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
My small, incapable of fully understanding brain. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
I mean, David's and my journey is probably different, or actually David's and my journey is a little bit of the same, and Rudy's as well, where we were like 4, 5, and 6 was like Star Wars. It was like, oh, this is it. And then when the prequels came out, we were like, no way. Like there's more of these things. This is exciting. And then so 7, 8, and 9 is a whole new thing for people. And that's what I always want to tell people is like, just don't be a jerk to other people about their Star Wars experience, because that's what they're doing. They're picking on their experience, and it's like, why are you picking on someone else's experience? Like you also had an awesome Star Wars experience and you're a kid, and you're gonna make fun of someone else's, and that's where I get like, I'm like, nah, that's not. Like I go on TikTok and I'm like seeing people. I saw somebody, they were like, we're gonna do a Star Wars marathon. They do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they're like, oh, and that's it. And they're like, throw the remote. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That was really cool. And then someone on our Facebook, I shouldn't say it, but somebody posted, it's like poetry, it rhymes, which is a great quote by George Lucas when he was describing episode 1 and episode 4, where he said, it's like poetry, it rhymes, the stories rhyme. And they put Luke with the double suns, Boba with double suns, and Rey with the double suns. And someone went in there and they were like, I fixed it, and they took Rey off of there. And I was like, that's not cool, man. Like, that's not a cool thing to do. You know what I mean? But I don't know.
It's just all over the gambit. I mean, there's people online that just love Rey, love Kylo Ren more than anything else.
Yes.
And then you have the complete opposite. And then you have people that are in between.
The trash on it, right? And so,
yeah. It's, I mean, there's so many people in the world now. And then with the advent of social media, everyone can put their opinions out there. And I don't think I could read back in 1984, 85 and see reviews of the films and like reread back and have them be fresh and hear people talking about having conversations. I was born in 1981, so I experienced all the original trilogy on VHS, and I never heard any criticism at all about the original trilogy. I just always heard how awesome they were, and it really kind of like blew my mind when I saw them on VHS, even on that small like wood console TV that we owned. And I was always like waiting for the next one. And I saw episode 4 and I'm like, okay, where's 1, 2, 3? No one had answers. There was no internet. I was like just all alone. And not until I became older that when I found out that the special edition was hitting, I was actually at the Walnut 6 in New Braunfels. And it's been shut down for decades, it seems now. But when they aired that trailer for the first time, and the first time I saw an X-Wing on the big screen, I was blown away even then.
Mm-hmm.
And that just kind of like colored in my Star Wars experience. I was just completely blown away as a kid. But there was no internet. There was no communicating with other people outside my family about Star Wars. Not until I was like in high school, until I brought it up to someone and he was like, yeah, man, they're like the best. And then when episode 1 hit, my small town, the theater was completely full of every generation in town, you know, old people that couldn't walk. I mean, like, it was wild. I had never known that so many people love Star Wars as much as they did. But everyone has different experiences, and it's amazing. It's incredible.
Was that a special edition commercial, the one where you see the little TV and then like it zooms in and the X-Men fly? Oh, I remember that thing, dude.
And you know what? I think I was there to watch Beavis and Butthead, the movie. I think that was the movie that was playing.
Beavis and Butthead Do America.
Do America.
Yeah, it was me and my brother Pete, who's been on the podcast, and I had no idea the special editions were coming out. And then when that happened, because there was no internet, I mean, I wasn't subscribed to any Star Wars magazines or anything, so I had no idea, and really didn't have any Star Wars friends, really. So
yeah, like I'm the same way. Like, you know, we grew up pre-internet era and like pre-cell phone era, so we didn't have any way to communicate with other people. So my family influenced me on the original Star Wars trilogy, and then when I was old enough for I think I was in junior high when episode 1 came out, and at that point in time I actually found a band of nerds that loved it as much as I did. So we really enjoyed it, and I don't say that in a negative way. I love nerds. I'm a nerd, so it's fine. It's okay.
Hey, we're on a Star Wars podcast here, Rudy. You realize what you're doing now, but yeah, it was. I just remember episode 1 when that came out, man. It was just a big deal, and like, I don't know, I was the only kid in school wearing Star Wars shirts at that time, and now that I'm an adult, I can buy as many Star Wars shirts as I want. You know what I mean? So I buy.
Star Wars can.
Yeah, you know. May the Force be with you too, Mark. Thank you for watching us. Thank you all for watching us talk about our past Star Wars experience, which I think, I don't know, I like to hear people's experiences with Star Wars, and I get angry whenever I hear people, and when I see comments or people just making fun of Star Wars fans who also say they are Star Wars fans, and I'm like, well, what is that? How does that even work? That doesn't, like, we like the same thing, you know that, right? Like, we're all in the same team. You don't have to be like a jerk. And somebody said,
that's the thing I didn't understand either. I was a big Star Wars fan, even though I didn't even realize it. So I I had the gold box of the special edition on VHS.
Nice.
So, like, my girlfriend at the time, their family was like kind of making fun of that whole fact, but they're like, "Can we borrow it?" And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, but why? Like, if you're being a jerk about it.
Yeah. So yeah, I never got that. And for some reason too, I'm Mexican American. I think 3 of us here are. And there's a big like love in the Mexican American community for Star Wars, I think. And it's kind of a weird thing. It's not talked about anywhere, but just about every Mexican American family loves Star Wars. They have a Star Wars story. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, because it takes the attention of the kids away. That way, the adults can go do their own thing in the backyard. I'm just saying, it's the truth.
Yeah, maybe that's why my parents were like, "Here, you just sit here and watch Star Wars." And then, Mark, what is the name of your podcast? We'll give it a shout out here on our podcast. Let us know what it is, please. But yeah, I remember you pointed that out to me one time, David. And I started looking around, and if you go on TikTok, you see a lot of funny videos. I do TikTok. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Don't judge, right?
And we have a TikTok too.
We have a TikTok as well. Yeah, what's TikTok? TikTok. And so, what was it? They were. I saw a few TikToks where it was a Hispanic family or a Mexican American family watching Mandalorian and seeing like their parents' reaction to seeing Luke, come out. They're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is great!" And I was like, "That's awesome. That's so freaking cool." We are going to be talking about bullies our next show. Yes, please make awareness and tell your listeners not to be. Yes, War of the Stars. That's right. War of the Stars. Check out their podcast. They also they put their episodes on the Star Wars Hub podcast as well. So let check them out. Yeah, bullies in Star Wars. I'm not a big. I don't like that. And somebody one time said, I'm not going to say who it was, but they were like, I hated the sequel trilogy so much because I love Star Wars. They said that to me, and I was like, wow, that's a statement. I don't even know where to begin with that. They were like, I cried. I was so angry because I
know who you're talking about. Actually.
I know you know who I'm talking about. And I was like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah. He told me the same thing when he said it. I was like, oh, okay, that makes 0 sense. But all right, rock on, man.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But hey, we're a cool podcast here. We like Star Wars. So if you want to talk about Star Wars with us, we will love to talk to you about it. So anyways, what else should we talk about today?
So do you want to keep on the whole like bully topic and talk about kind of what happened in the past?
Oh boy. All right. Yeah. So I mean, it's okay. It's Star Wars related. So and first off, the thing is, and David pointed it out to us, we still don't know the whole story. So that's one thing, kind of. We don't know exactly everything that was said. So David, go ahead and give everyone kind of a synopsis of what happened.
So this is my understanding. My understanding was Pablo Hidalgo, who's pretty much the senior person on the story group, on the Lucasfilm story group. And I think he has other roles as well. But he's been in Lucasfilm for a long, long time. And he was there after George Lucas was kind of like done with Star Wars. I think Kathleen Kennedy was the one that promoted him, I believe. But he was always on Twitter, and he was taking criticism and probably bullying from others about the sequel trilogy, The Last Jedi. And I think he was very active on Twitter up until about a year ago, and he pretty much blocked everyone except for maybe 200 to 500 people. And actually, one of my friends didn't get blocked, and I was kind of like shocked. It's like, wow. I was like, what was the criteria to figure out who not to block? So I was blocked. I never said anything bad about Pablo or really about Star Wars. I love Star Wars, but all of Pablo Hidalgo's tweets are private. So the only way you're going to see anything is if someone that's not blocked shares screenshots of what he typed. And that was done in regards to a Twitter thread of people making fun of Star Wars Theory's reaction to seeing Luke show up in the season finale of The Mandalorian season 2. And Star Wars Theory was crying. He was showing a lot of emotion. And Pablo put out a tweet stating emotions are not for sharing. And Star Wars Theory was made aware of that, and then he just had the knee-jerk reaction of, yeah, he's making fun of me, he's disrespecting the Star Wars community, and that just kind of blew up everywhere. But we didn't see the entire conversation that Pablo had. So I think it's still a mystery as to what Pablo was really talking about. Then Pablo came back and put that as his Twitter banner. Emotions are not for sharing. And that kind of like threw gas on everything. And he came back and had an apology, a public apology, stating that it was self-mockery and that, yes, emotions are for sharing. And that's what Star Wars is all about. And that's kind of the synopsis of what happened. So apparently, according to Pablo, it was a big misunderstanding. And what that tweet that was shared, that was screenshotted, wasn't really what it was talking about. Is emotions are not for sharing. And
I mean, that's just the nature of our society nowadays. People misinterpret what other people say on social media, and they don't get all the context and don't understand what people are trying to say. Now, Pablo, I mean, he's known not to hold anything back at times, but I don't see him making fun of a Star Wars fan for being emotional with Luke coming out. I don't see it. I really don't.
How about you, Sam? How do you feel about this whole situation?
I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I mean, I almost cried seeing Luke, so I don't want to be bullied.
Yeah, but then again, I understand completely, but it was the whole thing of like we don't know what was said before Pablo said any of that. You know what I mean?
We don't even know who he was talking to. It was a screenshot of a tweet.
Yeah, so
I don't like taking things out of context, especially like screenshot tweets, because those can be photoshopped and stuff. So I don't know anything about the story. So yeah, you're right. I should probably like not have a serious opinion.
But I mean, then again,
I mean, I almost cried.
Nobody should be making fun of anybody about how
absolutely not
Star Wars. Yeah. I mean, that's what we're gonna say right now. Like, even if you agree or not, just don't make fun of people who are watching Star Wars or into Star Wars. Like, that's not cool. But with this particular story, we don't know everything that happened. So, but him putting it as his like background, that was a whole. I was like, what are you doing, man? Like, that's a whole other thing, dude. Like, good grief. But anyways, we don't know.
Yeah, I love the fan reaction videos. I go out on YouTube and I seek them out because I just love it. I love the community. I love Star Wars fans. Even if you disagree with me on any opinion I have, I mean, we all still love Star Wars, and I mean that's kind of what it's all about. I think.
I don't think you'll understand how my messages with James are. Like that whole week that Luke was revealed, it was just TikTok video after TikTok video after TikTok video of fan reactions of Luke coming out or seeing the green lightsaber come. I mean, when I saw the green lightsaber, I jumped up out of my seat, almost dropping my son. But that's another story.
I just kept saying this is not happening. I was texting my wife going, this is not happening. And then when you see the green lightsaber, I was like, it's happening. Like this is going down. And it was amazing. It was the cool. And you know what's crazy? It happened 2 weeks ago, and people are still talking about it. People are still going on about Luke being in the Mandalorian. And now all these rumors are going around that they're going to do a Mandalorian. They're going to do a Luke Skywalker Disney Plus show, which we still don't know about it, but it's like
not confirmed, correct?
It's not
confirmed. Not confirmed. I think it's just fan wishing type of rumor. Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of rumors out there for a lot of different series that are kind of like rumors from really good sources, and a Luke series never like surface. So
I don't want to see it, Luke.
Honestly, I had mixed feelings about Luke being on the Mandalorian, but over the past few days, I've kind of changed my mind a little bit. So
what was mixed about it? I'm just curious.
I wanted anybody but Luke. I wanted like Ezra or Cal Kestis or somebody to come on the show, because deep down I wanted the Mandalorian to be standalone away from the Skywalker saga. But then the more I think about it and realize that you can't have a show in that timeline without having Luke or someone from that saga in the show, because at that point in time he's what the Jedi are. And so the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, okay, it made sense to have him in that show. But at first, I mean, I told James multiple times, I wanted anybody but Luke.
Yeah. And I can't imagine Jon Favreau writing the script and being like, Luke Skywalker enters, and him just pausing, looking at the script going, wow, like this is gonna, you know what I mean? Like when you're writing something and you write Luke Skywalker enters, you're gonna that's gonna be like, whoa, this is awesome. You know what I mean? I don't know. Favreau he knocked it out of the park with this whole show, man. Like it's just, I don't know. Favreau and Filoni and company, man, they just did something incredible with this that I never, ever, ever anticipated the Mandalorian going the direction it went. Like,
and see, before chapter 16, the rescue, I told myself, if Favreau and Filoni bring Luke Skywalker into this and they pull it off, they're like God men. And I was telling myself that the whole time, and then it happened, and I'm like, wait a minute, did that work? I was like looking at everyone's reaction. It was Sam, Colin, and I doing the live reaction on it, and I was just, I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. And now it feels like to me that everything's on the table. Like, no, you cannot say that
anything's on the table.
Yeah.
Like
they pulled it off.
I still think Mace Windu's showing up at some point. In some
don't tell me that, dude. Don't.
I think he will. I
saw Mace. I saw his skeleton being electrocuted. He's gone, man. Like,
dude, he was alive when he fell from that window. You don't know if he died.
Darth Maul was cut in half down a shaft.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Sidious was the.
Palpatine was thrown down a shaft and electrocuted too. So
yeah,
fair enough. Fair enough. Mace Windu could have lived, but I was more sad than I was happy that Luke was back because I didn't want to see Grogu leave. Like, that was my whole thing. I was just devastated at the very end of that. Like, everyone was like, "Oh my God, Luke's back," and I'm like, "But Grogu's gone." You know, like this is. I was like, I don't care if Luke's back. He took Grogu.
I think Grogu's coming back. I think we're gonna see him. I think there's gonna be like a time jump or something, and he's not gonna be killed by Kylo. So
yeah, not gonna be killed by Kylo. My
I mean,
wife
he survived Anakin, so why would he be killed by Kylo?
Yeah, Kylo's nothing compared to Anakin. My wife said she's like, I don't want to watch Boba Fett. I want to watch the Grogu. I was like, what? She goes, that's the show. The show's not called The Mandalorian. It's called The Grogu. And I was like, all right, that's pretty funny. So now when the show comes out, I'm going to call it The Grogu. But yeah, I think he's going to come back. And if he does come back, he's going to come back at the end of season 3. Like, that's going to be like,
so
the big hook is the end of season 3. We're going to see Grogu again.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, they didn't name drop Thrawn for no reason. I think Thrawn's going to be the big
yeah, that's a raw
bad guy, and I think that's where the.
Are you kidding? She's gonna show that was my thought to it.
Yeah, well, I thought the end of chapter 16 was going to be like a big, like, kind of Avengers Assemble kind of a deal where you see Ahsoka, Bo, and like everybody just comes to show up to fight Thrawn and Moff Gideon, and then Thrawn's like his ship's in the background.
Well, that's kind of what happened. I mean, you got everyone except for Cobb Vanth and Ahsoka. I mean,
yeah,
and Frog Lady.
Frog Lady better come back. That's all I'm saying, man. It's not going to be the Mandalorian without Frog Lady.
It's going to be Frog Lady's kids that come back. It's going to be the offspring.
And she'd be like, "We had more, but we don't know what happened."
I swear we had 150. I don't know what happened.
And Grogu's going to be like, look at her like, "Oh, that's crazy." No, I'm just kidding. That's terrible. But yeah, I remember Rudy and I for the longest time had the argument of when Ahsoka was going to show up in season 2, and one of the things I said was, "Yeah, Mark agrees. Thrawn will be the big bad. I think he's going to be the big bad overall in this."
The huge climactic event that Kathy Kennedy described.
The Thanos, I think, should be Sidious, should be Palpatine.
That's
my kind of thought.
No, so like
they can't defeat him, obviously. So that's the problem.
Well, I think the show we're seeing the process of trying to get him cloned. I mean, we saw that with Carl Weathers' episode. You saw the figure floating in the water that looked like
that was Snoke. It was Snoke, or
it had to be Snoke. I mean, you saw that little indention on his head, like it was Snoke.
Well, yeah, it was like. To me, it was like the experimentations leading up to the perfection of actually cloning Snoke or creating Snoke.
Yeah. So, I mean, Thrawn is going to be that, I talked about the big crossover event between Ahsoka and Mandalorian and Rangers of the New Republic. Thrawn's going to be that battle. It's going to be like a 3-episode event. It has to be. Sure. I mean, because you're going to need everybody to defeat him.
It's going to be awesome.
Do you guys think that The Mandalorian as a TV show will end on Mandalore? Getting that back? I mean,
I think so. I actually read an article yesterday. I was going to post it to the Facebook group from Screen Rant, giving a little bit of background on Moff Gideon, because that would be the only explanation where he got the Darksaber was the Purge of Mandalore, defeating Bo-Katan, and so everything leads back to Mandalore, and I think that's where the Mandalorian is gonna probably end. I don't think we'll go past maybe 3 or 4 seasons on the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I don't see Mandalorian going much longer, but who knows? What I think is going to happen is Mandalorian is going to be like the anchor for Disney Plus. So we're going to be getting like, Rangers of the New Republic and Ahsoka, and then the Book of Boba Fett, and then we'll get a Mandalorian like there.
We're not getting Mandalorian in 2021, right? Like
no, we're getting him in 2022. Yeah. So I think we're gonna get Mandalorian 2022, and then we're gonna get Ahsoka in 2023. And then maybe in 2024 we get another Mandalorian. Like I think they're going to spread Mandalorian out pretty as far as they possibly can.
They set the groundwork certainly. So yeah.
So and plus, somebody did a TikTok video, I know, but they showed a picture, the first picture of Din Djarin, the very first picture we ever saw of him walking down the streets there. Do y'all remember that picture of him as the Mandalorian? And they were like, first picture of Mandalorian, and it was like, this is awesome. And then someone posted like, I never thought that this picture would lead to this. And then you see Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, and you see like all this other stuff that happened, and Grogu, and you're like, yeah, that's right. That one picture, I never anticipated any of that ever happening. So, dude, like y'all say, man, anything is possible with friggin' Mandalorian. Anybody can come back, and like Sidious can come back now. There's no problem. I mean, like, it can happen. I mean, it's all there.
I think me and you talked about it a little bit too. I think they're going to use these shows to fill in a lot of the plot holes that we got from the sequel trilogy. I mean, we're going to start seeing the return of Sidious. We're going to start seeing the development of Snoke, the turn of Kylo Ren. Like we're going to start seeing those plot holes.
Yeah.
We might even see Leia being trained. Like,
take care, Mark. Sorry, say more. Sorry to Mark. Yeah. Take care, Mark. But no, I agree, Rudy. Like, a lot of those plot holes we're going to start to see. And one thing that I found interesting was Mandalorian was pitched in 2017. So Force Awakens had already come out. And I'm pretty sure Favreau had an idea of where it was all going.
I thought he pitched the Boba Fett series.
Well,
yeah, he wanted to do Boba Fett for sure.
Wasn't it going to be a movie? And then that kind of collapsed after Solo. That was my understanding.
That's the timeline we've all kind of filled in with what happened, because they never fully announced the Boba Fett movie. They just said James Mangold was going to be doing it, and then that completely just stopped.
Well, yeah, so, Jon Favreau wanted to do a Boba Fett project. We don't know if it was like a TV series, Disney Plus. I don't know if you knew about it yet. He wanted to do a project with Boba Fett, but I think Kathleen Kennedy in the head said no. Boba Fett is actually tied to a movie that Josh Trank was going to do. And then he bailed, and then James Mangold was tied to it like a couple years later. And then, of course, the box office effects of Solo happened, and then they pushed back movies for a later time. But then the success of The Mandalorian happened, and The Mandalorian is basically like the Boba Fett TV show. And then I think Kathleen Kennedy gave him the rights to Boba Fett, used Boba Fett, introduce him back on this hugely successful show. That's what happened. We all loved him, universally loved. So that gave them the green light to do the Boba Fett series. And I think even before season 2 happened, I think he had the green light to do the new series that we just didn't know about it yet.
Well, and plus he brought Boba Fett back in episode 5 or 4 of The Mandalorian. Like he already had him. Yeah, he already had him there. So I think, because the story was, and we all remember that Bob Iger in the summer of last year was like, season 2 is already greenlit. And we're like, whoa, okay, so I guess it's good. I mean, no, it was the summer 2 summers ago. Before season 1 even came out, Bob Iger said season 2 is already greenlit to go. So I think they already knew what they had. I think they already knew it was going to be a big success. And I think they were like, all right, here we go. Start going. Boba Fett's going to be in there. We're going to get a book of Boba Fett. And I think it was already starting to get the ball rolling. But I think that, what Rudy says, how Favreau is kind of filling in the gaps. I think he had an idea of where the sequel trilogy was going, and there he was like, okay, now let me see where I can work and how I can put it all together. The same as how Clone Wars, the show, brings everything together for between episode 2 and episode 3, because there's a lot of stuff that you're kind of like, okay, how did that happen? Who's General Grievous? Like, how does General Grievous even come into play? And how is he the general? You just accept him when he comes out in the show, but then you watch Clone Wars and you go, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense now, who he is and his background and everything like that. And so I think that's what Mandalorian is for for this generation. It's a live action show that fills in the gaps, and it's also telling a great story to get us to another trilogy. That's what I think is going to happen. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, the Mandalorian, I think, definitely is like a gateway drug to Star Wars.
That's another way to say it.
Yeah, I encounter so many people that say, "What's Star Wars?" when they talk about the Mandalorian. I'm like, "It's Star Wars is the thing that you're watching when you watch the Mandalorian." I mean,
yeah, you're watching.
And they're like, "What?" And they're like, "It's like, how do you not know that it says Star Wars like in the title in the banner?"
Show starts.
Yeah,
and then another thing, people are like, "Oh my gosh, Favreau and Filoni are completely erasing the sequel trilogy." I was like, "No, they're adding.
No, they're not.
To it. They're pushing us to the sequel trilogy. That's what I'm like, oh my gosh." Colin says he is a big fan of us, so thank you so much.
Sounds like a really cool guy.
Can we cancel this guy Colin, because he just said Max Rebo is coming? I need to cancel the. I'm just kidding, dude. Disney Plus put out, like, what did they say? We're all maxed out, and they put Max Rebo like on their thing, and Colin was like, "See, look, see," and I was like, "Oh." I was like, why? I have a feeling somebody at Disney is listening to this podcast, and they're just like, "There's a guy who likes Max Rebo. Let's just keep throwing it." How dare you? But, why aren't you on? Why aren't you on, Colin? We're all having a great time. But anyways, all right, we're about an hour into this episode. What else should we talk about? We got High Republic coming out this week. If you haven't already, get your audio books. And just so you know, the Audible audio books for Star Wars are amazing, because they have
they do the whole thing. Like, you hear the music, you hear everything,
sound effects, you hear like ships flying, blasters going, doors opening. I mean, they have everything in there. The voices are all really great. So if you are like, I don't know if I want to, get the audiobook for whatever this is going to be, because I have a feeling it's going to be awesome. And there's 2 books. Is it 2 books coming out on Tuesday? It's like a young adult novel. Then I don't want to say an adult novel because that sounds bad. Hey guys, huge fan. What should we call it? Thank you, Matt. We appreciate it. That's a nice picture of Matt right there. That's a nice picture. But anyways, yeah, so there's 2 books coming out. One's a young adult, one's an adult novel. And then on the second, we're getting, I think, 3 or 4 books coming out on February 2nd. So they're going to be just giving us a lot of content here starting soon. So just plug Audible. Yeah, there you go. We're not even sponsored by Audible anymore, but I'm telling you to get the Audible.
Actually, we are. Yeah, you can still use our link to yeah.
Okay.
It never like expired or anything. But see, if you click on our link though, if we like publish it, we don't get any credit at all. So it's like we just only can talk about it really because we tested that, and for some reason we just don't get any credit. So
what's the link, or what's the what?
Okay, so I'm trying to remember it.
How are they going to give us money?
We want you to give us money directly. We don't want you to give us straight to Audible. I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna go ahead and drop my Venmo on the bottom. Just click on it, whatever. It's fine.
Even it has nothing to do with anything. Oh, y'all want to hear something crazy? Somebody from Germany sent us a voice message through Anchor.
Yeah,
and
it's kind of weird.
It's
James played it for me. It's kind of weird.
It's weird. It's weird because I found out why it's weird, because at the end of it, she says, "I don't know if you'll be able to listen to it because it's all in German." And I was like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure she's just reading something off of something." And it was really sweet of her to say. And she didn't. I don't think she gave us the name of the podcast, or if she did, it's on there. But anyways, it was really nice. And I think we can add it to our episode. I think you can do that, David, on Anchor. You can.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, so you can hear. It was really nice. And hey, if you want to send us a voice message, which I didn't know you could do.
I didn't know either.
I didn't know you could do that. But if you go to Anchor and go to our thing, and I think you can send us a voice message, and then we can play it. And I don't know. That's pretty cool. I don't know, if you want to do it, try it. Go to Anchor, type in our podcast, and go for it. Just please nothing about Max Rebo. I would really appreciate it if it was nothing about Max Rebo. But anyways, are you still trying to find that Audible?
No, I stopped because I've tried to look for it before, and it's like so deep inside of our emails. But see, the thing is that we had like an ad before our podcast, and we read out like a whole script and everything, and we stopped doing it because we stopped we stop having people like doing the free trial. All you have to do is sign up for a free trial for 30 days and you can cancel, and we actually get credit for it, and we actually get paid by Amazon, who owns Audible. But months went by, and then all of a sudden we had more money appear, and I was trying to figure out, okay, how did we get money? And it was from Audible. I think once something big happened in Star Wars, new people started listening, and they used our link. They actually typed it out. You have to type it out. Like I said, you can't just click on the link and we get credit for it. So,
and we thank you for doing that. And also,
thank you very much,
listeners. Thank you for rating our podcast on Apple Podcasts, because we're like, I don't want to say we're number 2, but we're way up there. And
Spotify as well. If you type in, I confirm this. Like,
if you
Star
type
Wars
in
podcast, Spotify, we're number 1.
Yeah. So, and it all goes back to one day when David and I sat in a room and we had a little lav mics talking to each other about Star Wars, and I was like, oh my gosh, we got 700 listens all time. This is great. Like, we were so excited, and we had no idea this podcast was going to grow to what it is today. I mean, we had no idea. And that's what's so exciting about Star Wars, is how everyone always asks, like, do y'all run out of stuff to talk about? I was like, we never run out of stuff to talk about Star Wars.
No.
There's always something with Star Wars, and that's what's so fascinating about it, is it just more stuff starts happening. I mean, Bad Batch comes out when? This year? What day does it come out?
I don't know if we have a date yet.
See, we don't have a specific date, but I think springtime is what I think we're all kind of assuming. And all the official stuff is 2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that show. I can't wait for Bad Batch to come out.
Bad Batch is going to be awesome, dude.
It's going to be super popular too, because not everybody's watching Clone Wars. So,
and I think it's going to be. I remember when I was watching, because I'm dumb. Just, I'm gonna throw that out there. I'm not that smart.
No.
So I watched I watched the first 2 seasons of Rebels before I watched Clone Wars. I know, I'm stupid. And I remember watching it thinking it was, Disney kids show, and they're over there killing people and stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's not a kids show. And then you get further in, and even Clone Wars, you get further into Clone Wars, you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is violent. Like, this is like really violent stuff. So I think they're gonna take that with Bad Batch, and I think they have like a really good excuse to kind of make it kind of gritty and brutal and everything. So I'm kind of excited to see what they do.
I think they're picking up right after Order 66 for Bad Batch. So I think it's going to start out just, bam. I don't think they have to ease their way into it anymore.
Yeah, I think we're going to start getting, and I think we're going to see a lot of what happens to the clone troopers after the rise of the Empire. So it's that little gap where Bad Batch is going to be is one thing that's always been kind of a mystery to me, of what was going on during that transition from the Republic to the Empire. So it looks like it's going to be pretty good, man. I'm pretty excited to see what's going to happen with that one.
I hope we get a live action film one day of Order 66 and what happens from a different point of view compared to Revenge of the Sith.
Sorry about the dogs barking, everybody. Sorry.
And we are going to get a lot of Mandalorian elements in the Bad Batch. We're going to get Fennec Shan, and there's rumor of Bo-Katan showing up. So
cool.
Yeah, they're definitely tying in stuff that we love.
Somebody found an old picture of the actress. I was going to say Fennec Shan, but that's not her name. What's the actress who plays Fennec Shan?
Ming-Na Wen.
Yeah, they have a picture of her with George Lucas like many years ago, and they were at some party, and she like took a picture with him, and she said, "I remember whispering like I want to do something in Star Wars, and now she's doing Star Wars." You know what I mean? Like, I think that's really cool how all these people years ago are like, "Oh my gosh, that'd be so cool to do a Star Wars, something in Star Wars," and now the time is here where you can do Star Wars now, and it's really, really cool. Like the doctor from Mandalorian was like, "I've always wanted to be a hologram talking to somebody in Star Wars," and here I was in the Mandalorian as a hologram talking to them in Star Wars. I'm like, that's freaking awesome. It's pretty cool. They unite with Max. All right, we're gonna stop this podcast right now, Colin. But anything else to talk about today?
Yes, on the topic of Mark Hamill and Ming-Na Wen, I kind of was in the belief that Mark Hamill had like nothing to do with his appearance other than being on set in Chapter 16 of The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. But Mark Hamill put out a tweet thanking Ming-Na Wen, and it happened vice versa. And Ming-Na Wen described how it was such a great experience working with Mark Hamill. So she's saying she worked with Mark Hamill on Chapter 16. So that kind of leads to the belief that Mark Hamill was actually doing some acting and was on camera. somehow, some way.
I don't know, man. Because he definitely doesn't move like Mark Hamill. Like the moves he did, that the person playing Luke in Chapter 16. I mean, that was pretty quick stuff. I don't know.
Well, no, that was totally like a stunt double. Max Lloyd Jones. Yeah, that was someone else. But when he was just standing there, and the face, a lot of people claim that his face was de-aged. Mark Hamill's face right now was de-aged. I don't buy that. To me, that doesn't sound logical to do that. It would sound a whole lot better just to lift his face from Return of the Jedi and put it on Max Lloyd Jones. But I don't know. We do know Mark Hamill was there on set. He was there. We do know that for a fact.
I thought we knew who the actor was. Who?
Oh, yeah, we know. What's his name?
Right, Max Lloyd Jones. He's an English actor, but I mean, that doesn't mean that Mark Hamill didn't do anything to help, like, kind of complete the performance that we saw on screen.
Yeah, he may have like. I mean, he may have like coordinate or like instruct. No, Luke would move this way, or he would do that. Maybe. I mean,
I think he for the reaction shots of the actors when the camera's not on Luke, maybe Mark Hamill was the stand-in, giving them the lines there. Like maybe the reaction of Pedro Pascal and the actors there, they were looking at Mark Hamill doing that. And so for them, they were like, oh my gosh, it's Luke Skywalker. So that look on their face was like, oh, that's him, So, I mean, that's what I would do if I were, Favreau and team making a Star Wars movie. Mark Hamill's there. I would say, okay, you're not going to be seen right now, but I need them to react to Luke Skywalker, and you're freaking Luke Skywalker.
So are you saying Giancarlo Esposito is scared of Mark Hamill?
Yes, I am saying Giancarlo Esposito is scared of Mark Hamill. I like that. I love that meme where it's like, there's one X-Wing, and it cuts to him, and he's like, one X-Wing. Like, what? It's just one X-Wing. But now, what how you say how they take the face off and they put it face off. Now, how they took his face, they did that for Rise of Skywalker. I mean, when he lifts the thing up, I was like, that's Mark Hamill, like from years ago. That visual effect of Luke lifting up the visor was amazing. And then you watch Mandalorian, you're like, okay, I don't know what happened there, but it's still pretty cool. Those still look really, really nice. Another thing we found out was Filoni said, and the wording of it made me kind of like go, okay, what was really happening? He says that the reason he got into live action kind of and really started getting into it was when he was on the set of The Last Jedi, because apparently Rian Johnson would keep testing him like, hey, what lens is this? Do you know what this does? Hey, check this out. Hold this. How does this look? And even Ron Bergman also was there with Filoni, kind of helping him understand live action. And I was like, okay, how long was Filoni on the set of The Last Jedi? If he's saying that he was taught by Rian Johnson, kind of the live action feel of a set, I thought that was an interesting thing that Rian Johnson invited Filoni, which means that Rian Johnson knows who Dave Filoni is and is like, hey man, come here and watch me make this Star Wars movie. I thought that was an interesting thing. No one ever talked about, and I thought that was pretty cool in my opinion. But just me. Anyways, I'm just
so did Dave Filoni talk specifically about Rian Johnson, or was that just like a story told by someone else?
No, he said Rian Johnson.
Okay, because I was like, come to think of it, I've never heard Dave Filoni talk about anything in regards to The Last Jedi or Rian Johnson, but I think he did do it on the Star Wars show interview, right?
Yeah, it was either in the Star Wars show interview or it was in the Art of the Mandalorian when they're talking to him about the process and everything, which like I said, I thought that was pretty cool. That
if he wants to come on the Star Wars Stuff podcast and talk about it, we'll have him on.
Yes, Dave Filoni, if you would love to join us, we'll get our agent to you, and we'll work out a schedule for you because we're very busy.
We can fit you in for
let's see where you fit you in the Star Wars Stuff podcast.
Yeah, I'll just say it right now. Everyone involved with Lucasfilm, Star Wars, TV, film, comic books. Yeah, you're all invited to the Star Wars Stuff podcast.
Please let us know. If you want to join, we will love to have you.
The intern that gets the coffee.
Yes, if you want to avoid some NDAs, we'll be here.
But anything else today? Anything else?
Yeah, we talked about how Gallery was I said it was going to happen. Episode 2, you said it wasn't going to happen, and you were right, James. It didn't happen. And yeah, that's so disappointing.
Eric for the first episode, that was my hunch too. But yeah, I actually checked this week. I was like, oh, is there going to be another one? But no, there wasn't. So yeah,
I'm not trying to be like braggadocious or like I know everything, but I figured it out halfway through the gallery. I was like, oh, this is it. This is all they're going to give us because of how much they were giving us with each episode. Yes, I was Benedict Cumberbatch right there, and I was just like, this is it. This is all they're going to give us because we're seeing interviews with every director, with everybody on the side. And what was really funny in the gallery was it was really quick. Jon Favreau and his son were doing the graffiti on the wall, and you hear his son go, "You've done this before, haven't you?" He's like, "No." They're like, "You're doing a really good job with that." And if you notice, the artist, what was his name? The artist of the graffiti,
David Cho.
David Cho. David Cho. He designed it all, but they had the directors of the Mandalorian actually like paint in and color it all. Because if you look, there's a shot where you see Bryce Dallas Howard, Dave Filoni, and Famuyiwa all there on the wall painting the wall themselves. So I think that was a cool way of Favreau having everybody on board to like everyone gets a shot at decorating this wall because it's a cool. And like he said, hey, there's no graffiti in Star Wars. And he was like, you're right. There is no graffiti in Star Wars. And now he said the bottom half is just for the Jawas because they can't reach the top. I was like, that's so like so much thought went into that. Like you never would have thought about that. I don't know. I thought that was pretty awesome.
I loved when they talked about, I think it was a Filoni idea or something, or maybe it was Favreau, one of the two. They were talking about when they were on Trask on the boat, they were talking about not doing any shots that they wouldn't have been able to do if they were actually out in water.
Yeah.
That was a really cool detail. I'm like, oh, that's freaking awesome. So,
dude, it's the small details that make it. It's crazy.
And how Favreau said with the helmets of the dark troopers, he says, they need to be there. The light needs to bounce off of it a certain way because that's the way it bounced off of Vader's helmet in the first Star Wars movie. And you're just like, yeah, it looks real. Like they come out and you're like, those are real things. That's freaking terrifying. And like Rudy said, those little small details they got perfectly with the Mandalorian. And it's just, I don't know. That's what makes that show so awesome, in my opinion. Anyways.
Yeah, I think that's why the Mandalorian worked, because you had like super fans like John and Dave working on it and collaborating, working as a team. And it's like Dave Filoni is like the heir apparent to George Lucas, and then who knew it that Jon Favreau was that huge of a Star Wars fan? And then he has like all the clout in the world because he started the MCU and he produces all the Marvel films, which are super successful.
Obviously, that was huge for him.
So.
Yeah, he's doing pretty good, and I'm glad he's on Star Wars now. So
yeah, I mean, he wrote what 95% of the episodes for season 2. I think there's only like 1 or 2 episodes he didn't write.
Yeah, Filoni wrote the Jedi, and Famuyiwa wrote. Famuyiwa and Favreau wrote the Believer, I believe.
Yeah,
I believe.
You
believe in the Believer. Yeah.
But he actually, the Famuyiwa wrote that other episode in the first season. I don't know. They like, hey, come back and write another Star Wars episode. So I don't know, man. It's a great time. I'm loving it.
I do want to say that I do still have hope for a second episode for the gallery because we got nothing on Luke Skywalker. So they could possibly put something together where they kind of detail and kind of go through and show everything that transpired to get Mark Hamill on set so secretly. I mean, the fact that did not leak. Everything else leaked except for Luke Skywalker showing up, which is like one of the biggest reveals in Star Wars history. I want to say it's number 2 after I Am Your Father.
Wow. All right, you heard it here first. Star Wars Stuff Podcast is claiming
that's
we have to get some type of documentary on that. We have to have some.
I mean, the reveal of Grogu is kind of up there.
I'm not gonna lie, seeing Grogu in the first episode of Mandalorian was just like, what is going on with this thing? That was a beautiful moment in Star Wars.
Yeah, it left me absolutely hooked.
Well, we didn't know there was going to be a child, and we talked about it on the podcast. The Mandalorian was going to revolve around a child. We just didn't know what type of child. But Luke Skywalker just out of nowhere. Like everyone thought that there was no way it was going to happen, and then when it happened, I think people were more shocked about that than they were about the child Grogu.
No,
But yeah,
I agree. The shot factor is there, but the Grogu reveal, that's top 3 easily.
Okay, yeah, I'll say that. It's in my top 10 moments in Star Wars. I'm just gonna say that right now.
Knocked out John Williams there.
Hey, we're gonna not talk about that. Okay, guys. We're just gonna ignore that ever happened. All right. Anything else?
Music isn't a moment, James. Just saying it.
Sad note that I don't know if we want to end on, but Tom Kane had a stroke.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of sad. Voice of Yoda and the announcer in Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he's unable to speak right now, so thoughts and prayers with him. Certainly, that's
yes, because
crazy. He's not even that old. So
that's what shocked me when I found out. I was like, he's not even. He looks fairly young, and it's just such a sad thing to happen. Yeah, thoughts and prayers go out to his family, and hopefully he gets better.
Yeah, it happened about 2 months ago, and the day that the news broke, I think he actually accepted my friend request, and then that's when I found out it happened. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" But yeah, 2 months ago.
I feel dumb that I didn't look at the date on that. I just looked it up. And it was,
Well, I think his daughter made a post, and she said about 2 months ago that same day.
There you go.
So yeah, James is eating now.
James is eating.
Sorry. We have a sad moment right now, but my dog just came in with a bunch of powdered sugar on her head right now, and it made me laugh. So I'm sorry, guys. Did not mean to ruin that moment.
You got a dog that serves you dessert.
Yeah.
So yeah, the other thing too, if you look at the credits at the very end of The Mandalorian Chapter 16, you'll see now in memory of Jeremy Bulloch, which I thought was a nice. Yeah, they added it. So
cool.
That's pretty awesome.
I'm glad they did.
I'm glad they did that. That is amazing.
And yeah. Well, anything else today? Or we talked quite a bit though about a bunch of nothing at the beginning of this podcast. We should have had a plan. We are very sorry, Star Wars fans.
No, we talked about Star Wars stuff. So.
We talked about Star Wars stuff. I mean, stuff about Star Wars.
So yeah, I think Happy New Year, guys! 2021.
Yes,
should
2021.
be a huge jam-packed year full of Star Wars stuff. The High Republic, Bad Batch. Then we get a series of comics, I believe, for the High Republic.
Yes, that's.
And then we get Book of Boba Fett at the end of the year. And
dude, I'm just saying they better have Boba being a beast the way he was in The Mandalorian. Like he came out like Robert Rodriguez said it best, like a barbarian, just smashing everybody up.
And by the way, Tamora Morrison has a beautiful singing voice. If you want to know, go on to Spotify or Apple Music, type in Tamora Morrison, and he has an album out, and he has a beautiful singing voice. So not only is he Boba Fett, he's a singer. So check it out. I sent y'all the link. I sent y'all the link, and Joseph was like, "Dude, that actually doesn't sound bad." I was like, "Right." He and Ewan McGregor need to do a duet one day. Just gonna say that. But anyways, what else?
So Star Wars Insider is going to come out. The 200th edition of Star Wars Insider is going to drop.
Oh my gosh!
This year. And there's going to be actually 2 different covers. There's going to be a variant and one I think you can pick up in shops if you can make it to a shop. I don't know, but I think I'm going to renew my subscription. I had a subscription during the prequel era, and I think I'm going to have to renew it for this because I think Boba Fett is on both covers.
And man, we're getting that show at the end of the year. Oh, so that's I don't know. That's gonna be like the thing I'm counting down all year is the Book of Boba Fett now because I am pumped for that stuff, man.
I'm actually really excited for Lego Star Wars Saga. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Lego Star Wars Saga.
Yeah, getting pumped. We'll see.
All right, we got a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, it's important. That's gonna be released in the springtime, apparently.
May the 4th, that'd be the best time.
Yeah, Colin was saying in chat that May the 4th might be Bad Batch as well, which would be a pretty cool date to release that.
Do it.
And there's also a rumor that Star Wars Visions might happen on Disney Plus.
Well, I thought that was like the thing. Like it was supposed to happen on Disney Plus.
Well, this year.
Oh, this year. Oh,
yeah.
I did not know that. Okay.
So
man, this is awesome. This is gonna be a good year then.
Well, the other thing that's happening this year that we didn't talk about, we've talked about it in the past, but Kathleen Kennedy's contract expires this year.
That's really interesting.
So we don't know if she's going to re-up and stay.
Because I've kind of heard rumors of
Dude,
kind of working.
That's pretty interesting.
We'll see.
We all got quiet.
Yeah, we're all figure out what we're gonna do.
All right.
I'm just like, all right.
Well, no, because we all have opinions, and we're like, do we say what we want to happen? But no,
Dave
we'll
Filoni and Favreau. That's the dream team.
Knock it off. I think she's doing a great job. I think she's getting it.
I think now she has
been. Oh, Rudy.
Well, I think they knocked out the sequels because they had to. Oh
yeah,
I froze. My bad.
Yeah, you froze for a second. Yeah.
Am I back?
You're back.
No, my bad. So they had to knock out the sequels, and now she's bringing on the people that she needed to make Lucasfilm what it is now.
Yeah. I
Popular
think
again, I
think she's going to get her contract renewed. I think she's going to try to renew it. I don't know. I have a feeling that she's getting her. She's getting her stride. That sounds rude because she's had her stride for 30, almost 40 years now with all the movies she's been a part of. I don't know. I think we're going to see more of her, and I know some fans are going to be mad, but I think we're going to be seeing more of Kathleen Kennedy. But
she is. I mean, she does know the industry, and like you said, she's been around for forever. I think she even worked on ET and stuff way back in the day.
Yes,
so
she's been. I showed somebody. They're like, yeah, some people don't like her, and I was like, okay, well, they don't like her because they don't think she's doing a good job of Star Wars. I said, but look what she's done in the past. And I went through her IMDb with somebody, and they were just like, dude, what? I was like, yeah, like she's a part of all of those movies.
Yeah, producer on ET was her first thing that I see.
Right, but I don't think she was doing the things that she's doing now on Star Wars, though. She wasn't like the creative green light,
Yeah, true.
And I think it's a tough thing. I don't know how projects hit her desk for people pitching things to her. I mean, she's greenlit several things, but I mean, I don't know. There's so many things out there, and I know we got the huge slate, Rogue Squadron. I watched Wonder Woman 84. I really wasn't a fan of it, and I don't know. I haven't seen a film for Patty Jenkins that I've liked yet. I haven't seen Monster yet, but I didn't like the original Wonder Woman or 84. So I don't know. I don't know what that's going to bring for Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, that's my same concern too. After I watched Wonder Woman 84, I was like, let's just hope that she does a better job with Rogue Squadron.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope Kathleen Kennedy actually does get replaced by someone that's a huge Star Wars fan. If it's not Jon Favreau or Filoni, I don't think Filoni has the qualifications yet. I think Favreau does, but I don't think that's something Favreau wants to do. I still think he wants to create. But I just want someone to sign the checks, really. And that's all they have to do for Lucasfilm. But I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Oh, hello there, longtime fan. Thank you very much for watching. We've been talking for like an hour and a half. We hope you enjoy this podcast. I can't say the name. I'm sorry, but thank you so much for listening.
Saeed
Salahuddin, maybe.
Yeah.
If we butchered it, we're from Texas. We can't. We don't.
Texas, Michigan.
They're from Michigan. So, but yeah. So, I guess that's it, huh?
I think so. How many times are we going to say is this it?
Well, ever since he got that food, he's just staring at it off to the side.
Yeah, I am. Actually, it's a Favreau reference though, because it's a beignet, and we actually watched the chef show when he made the beignet there with Roy Choi, and so that's why I'm looking at this thing. Anyway. But yes, thank you so much for listening, and Rudy, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Be sure to check out our Facebook group page, our YouTube channel, where we're actually streaming this for y'all to see. And then if you want to jump on and comment, please feel free to. We'll put announcements when we're going to record our episodes, as well as check us out on Instagram and on Twitter. And there's our Instagram. Yeah, we got all the stuff right down below, and our Twitter, as well as the TikTok. Yeah, TikTok is going a little slow. We're trying our best to get TikTok going, but yeah, just check us out there. We're there. And again, thank you so much for watching, and we appreciate everything. Oh yeah, Patreon. Don't forget Patreon. Please don't forget Patreon.
And Audible. We're up on Audible.
Yeah, apparently we're on Audible too.
And leave voicemails.
Yes, and leave us a voicemail on Anchor. Please leave us a voicemail. I want to read.
Venmo, you know.
So
yeah, Venmo. I'll leave my
PayPal.
email. Just kidding. Y'all have a wonderful week. Be sure to check out the High Republic.
Do we have fans only yet, or are we working on?
May the force be with you
always.